a bad day for the ego is a great day for the soul. What is the difference between success and greatness? When I was chasing success, it was all about me. But when I go after greatness, it's about we. It's about doing it with other people. It's about impacting other people in a positive way. Not about how I can look good. You can't buy peace. Like, it's momentarily, but you're going to resent yourself. You're going to resent the relationship. You have to be peace. You have to be harmony and peace within you when there's chaos around you. You got to be willing to create boundaries, and not your relationship or other people in life aren't always going to like the boundaries you create.
Today's episode is with my good friend, Lewis Howes, host of the School of Greatness, author of multiple New York Times best-selling books, a two-time All-American, and a national team player for handball. This guy is absolutely incredible, and his mindset is next to none. It's unbelievable. Today's episode was made possible by your guys' support at Mulliganbrothers.com, where you can get the Not a Journal Success Journals, the Memento Mori posters, the ones you can see behind me. That's my life plotted out right there. Posters that remind you your time is precious and that you're going to die and you have to fill in every single week. And also the t-shirts and hoodies. Thank you for all your support. We pour that back into this and make these interviews happen. And we have so many more planned for 2024. It's going to be absolutely huge. So thank you to everybody who's subscribed and hit the notification bell and supported us at Mulliganbrothers.com. Lewis really is an incredible man. He's one of those people who is willing to share his experiences in life to help others. And some of those experiences that he's opened up about have been so difficult for him to process, but process them he has. And now he comes with these lessons, these books, these teachings, these podcast episodes. And you can really hang on every word that he says, knowing that he's fully backed it through experience. He's just an incredible guy. And I'm so glad that he opened up so much on this podcast episode as well. So thank you to Lewis. I'm so excited to share this episode with you. Let's dive into it. It feels really weird to be on your set as well.
Jordan's in the house.
Thank you so much for having me there. Thank you for having us out. And just for people who don't know, we just asked that you to introduce yourself and what you do.
My name is Lewis Howes. I'm a former professional athlete. I'm a New York Times bestselling author, and I host the School of Greatness podcast.
And that is a condensed version, isn't it? There's a lot to it. That's a condensed version. We create these sort of docu-profiles, and we like to really take it back to the early days. So as someone from the UK, you said you grew up in Ohio. Describe what is that like for someone who wouldn't know, who never stepped a foot in the US.
Small town Ohio has a lot of beauty, but it can also feel very boring as a kid. So there's these incredible values, there's family, there's community, and there's really just a good sense of energy a lot of the time growing up in small town Ohio. But like most people, there was dysfunction in my life. There was dysfunction in with my parents, with my siblings, and I was the youngest of four. So as the youngest of four in my family and in my small town, my earliest memories were traumatic ones, were painful. I don't really have a lot of good early memories. One of my first memories was being sexually abused as a kid when I was 5 years old. I have a couple memories before then, but really that was one of my first memories. And so there was early kind of psychological trauma early on, thinking about that. And I thought about that, and it came up in my mind pretty much every day for 25 years of my life until I started to address it 10 years ago at 30. But that was one of my first memories. And I remember my parents really not knowing how to love each other. And so it was kind of dysfunctional with their relationship. I knew that they loved me and my siblings, but they argued a lot. They had a lot of passive aggressive energy toward each other, and they got in fights. And so I didn't feel emotionally safe as a kid. At home. And I don't fault them. They did the best they could with the tools they had, but that was the way I grew up, and it was very confusing. When I was 8, my brother went to prison for selling drugs to an undercover cop. So he was in jail for 4.5 years. Sentenced 6 to 25, got out on good behavior on 4.5 years. So all of this happening by 8 years old. And we would go to the prison almost every weekend and visit my brother, my whole family. It was very confusing because my brother was 11 years older than me. But we were going to visit him in a visiting room with other convicts and their families. Like once a week, we could go for a couple hours and visit. And I would look at my brother and think, he's a good guy. Like he's a loving, kind, good guy, but why is he here? He made these mistakes. He sold some drugs. And it was just confusing. And it was a very challenging time for my parents and for us siblings to my brother, because as an 8-year-old in a small town in Ohio, everyone knew everything about the community. And so people knew that my brother went to prison. And so therefore the parents in my neighborhood wouldn't let their kids hang out with me. So for a number of years, I just kind of hung out by myself. And that's where I started to get into just trying to play as many sports as possible. But it was a lot of like me throwing a ball against a wall for hours every day and just trying to play games with myself to keep myself, attentive to things. I struggled in school, like we talked about before. I really struggled in school. When I moved away when I was 13. I begged my parents to send me away to a private boarding school because I wanted to get away from the town, the environment, my parents. I just wanted to get out. I didn't feel emotionally safe. And again, I know my parents loved me and I loved my parents, but just all the circumstances, I didn't want to be there. I felt like I wanted to get out. And when I went to this private boarding school, I had a lot of standardized tests. They tested me on everything. And with reading and writing, I had a 2nd grade reading level in 8th grade. So I was always in these special needs classes. I always had a tutor. When other people were doing recess or lunch, I would go and do extra work to try to catch up. And it was just, I always felt insignificant. I felt stupid. I didn't feel like I was enough. I felt like something was wrong with me. And I'd always think, what is wrong with me? Why am I messed up and everyone else isn't messed up? What is off where everyone else seems to be happy? And so I kind of was always searching for more. I was searching to figure out how to feel better about myself, how to understand why I was here, why these things were happening in my life, and really how to create meaning from my life. And so that was the early days from growing up in small town Ohio to moving away at 13 and living in a dorm from 13 till 18, essentially, with a bunch of other guys, and learning how to evolve. But the things that really kept me alive and kept me going was having great coaches and mentors. And I thrived off of discipline. I thrived off of order. I thrived off of teamwork and having a coach push me to get the best out of me and having goals every week to strive for. And I think as a kid, I just didn't know what I was doing. It was just kind of like show up. I was the youngest of 4. My older siblings didn't want to hang out with their younger brother. I was kind of a goofy brat, just kind of always wanted to hang out with them. They didn't want to hang out with me. And I didn't really have any friends. And so I was trying to figure out, where can I find the meaning in my life? How can I get friends? How can I get people to like me? How can I just figure out why I'm struggling in school? And when sports came along and I realized I was good at it, that's when I went all in and just became obsessed.
Like in terms of a childhood, there's a lot of trauma there, very difficult childhood. And now, you're in this position where you're extremely successful, you've got a lot of growth, and you can look back now and, you've obviously used some of those moments. But in the moment of being that child, was there something within your makeup that just made you want to be great, made you want to perform, be great at sports, do well in school? Or was it the fact that you was in this difficult situation?
I think it was, my brother was an extremely talented violinist. He was under 18 in the US, he was one of the top classical violinists in the country. He would win all the competitions, national awards, all this. So he was a child prodigy. And I grew up watching him perform and be celebrated for this talent, right? And he was a freak of nature and still is today on the violin. And then when he went to prison, he joined the prison band and he became a master at jazz violin. And now he's the #1 jazz violinist in the world. So I watched my brother with this incredible talent develop it and succeed before prison, in prison, and then after prison. My father was extremely talented. He was extremely smart. He was successful in his business later in his career, and he was extremely talented opera singer. So he had these gifts and this ability as well in different areas of life. And when you look up to my older sisters, like they were talented in their own skills and their own ways. And so I was like, okay, what's my gift? What's my talent? I suck in school. I feel like no one wants to hang out with me. I'm not a cool kid. Where is my gift? Where is my ability that I can find meaning in? And what can I develop? And that's why sports became a thing where I was like, oh, okay, I want to be someone greater than I am right now. I don't feel enough in school. I don't feel enough with peers. I'm getting made fun of and picked on for my abilities in school. My siblings don't want to hang out with me because they're older and they're living their lives. And so I just felt alone. And I really wanted to develop a skill where I was seen and where I felt like valued. I had another moment when I was in elementary school where I was picked last on a dodgeball, in a dodgeball game. Our classmates all went out to recess, and the teacher picked 2 captains. And he said, okay, I want you guys to pick, one person at a time for your team. And we're going to do a dodgeball game. So 2 teams playing dodgeball. And I remember it was 2 boys who were picking. And they went one by one and picked all the boys in the class to be on their team, right? One by one. And then I was the last boy. And they skipped me and they started picking all the girls, one by one by one. And so they picked all the girls and then I was the last pick. And I remember this moment vividly being like, how am I not even the last pick for the boys? Like I'm not even good enough. I'm weaker than all the girls and they're choosing me last of everyone. And I remember thinking to myself like, that's how people view me. They view me as weak. They view me as not good enough. They view me as not valuable based on results, based on where I was in my life. Or they were just trying to pick on me, either one. But that was feedback for me. And I remember thinking to myself, never again will I be picked last from that moment on. So there was definitely an anger and a pain and a wound that drove me to say never again. And I remember from that moment on, I was just training in the gym, playing basketball after school every day, playing any sport I could until I couldn't work out anymore, until my mom would come and drag me home at like 10 o'clock at night. I was just practicing and playing games all the time because I was like, never again will I be picked last. And I developed a character inside of myself, an identity of being the best athlete I can be at every sport that I played, so that I was always valuable on every team. And that got me a lot of results, that got me a lot of success. In high school, I became successful. In college, professionally, USA handball team, it drove me to achieve. But being driven by anger and not enough can only get you so far. It helped me succeed a lot, but it didn't help me feel like I was really fulfilled. And it was never enough. I would achieve all the goals that I wanted to achieve in sports, but I would be depressed and unhappy right after I'd achieve them. And I would ask myself, why? I just accomplished a goal that I had for 10 years. I put all this work into it. Why am I unhappy now? Why am I still suffering? And it's because I was driven by a wound as opposed to driven by a purpose, a meaningful mission, something that was more fulfilling than just trying to look good and fit in. And again, that drive got me out of that place. It got me into being more talented and gifted, but I needed to shift my mindset around how I was driven eventually, otherwise I would always suffer. And so about 10 years ago, I realized I was chasing success and success was hurting me. And I wanted to say, what is the difference between success and greatness? When I was chasing success, it was all about me. But when I go after greatness, it's about we. It's about doing it with other people. It's about impacting other people in a positive way. Not about how I can look good, how I can win at all costs, how I can be right, be number one, which was my entire life in sports and then in business. And that translates in relationships, which is why my relationships suffered. And so 10 years ago, I said, you know, I've accomplished a lot, but I still feel like a failure. Something needs to change. And I'm the common denominator. So I started to really take a look at my life and the way I was viewing life and how I was showing up in life. And that's when I started to do the healing work. The healing journey began. It's when I started to open up about sexual abuse for the first time. It's when I started to address the things that really caused me pain from my childhood or from previous relationships, because growing up in a small town in Ohio as a man in the 80s and 90s, I was never allowed to express my emotions or feelings in a healthy, conscious way. If I showed any weakness, any sadness, any tears, I was picked on and made fun of. I don't know if that was the same way for you growing up in the UK, but it wasn't, you weren't allowed to express yourself vulnerably. You just had to toughen it up. And I took on that persona, that mask of like, I'm gonna be able to do anything harder than anyone else, and I'm not gonna show emotion. But the more I bottled that up, the more anger came out in other ways. The more frustration, resentment, and anger would release in other ways, because I wasn't able to release other emotions. So that was the only emotion that I had. And it hurt me, and it hurt other people. And when I started to heal and open up the things inside of me and process them and transform them into love and acceptance and grieve things from the past and really accept the little boy inside of me who dealt with all of those pains, all those traumas, all that loss, all that sadness, all that loneliness, when I was able to reconnect with the little boy inside me, the inner child inside me, and start to mend that psychological relationship and have a different meaning about the past, a different story about the past, not a victim story or a sad story, but a story of overcoming things, of interpreting things in a different way. That's when 10 years ago, everything started to shift and transform. And it doesn't mean it's all been perfect and easy. It's just I'm more aware of my emotions and how to respond in situations. I'm more in tune and aligned to the vision I have, that is to serve, rather than the vision of being successful. Because when I try to be successful, I'm never fulfilled and happy. But when I'm in service of other people, when I'm in service of my gifts and talents, when I'm in service of a mission, good things always happen in return. And that's been the journey.
Wow, okay. I mean, there's a ton of things I need to dive into there. It's really strange, like, as you're describing that, like, so much of it resonates with me. The power of pain and ego, success is so powerful. Like, countries have been conquered on those emotions before.
Ego and anger and resentment and
but then it is like, it's so painful to other people. It's not just yourself, and it's painful to yourself. I need to go into that with you at some point to bring it back to the story of when you finding athleticism, you were finding sports, and you were talking about sort of diving into training and, you know, getting your head down. Your mum had to come and pull you away from training.
Yes.
Is there a specific story you remember, you know, where you was training one time? Is there something that stands out?
I remember I didn't have friends, and I was 12 years old, and a neighbor kid moved in 2 doors down, and he was 16 and I was 12. And he had moved from California to live with his family, and they had like a backboard with a hoop, just kind of like a half court in their backyard in the driveway. And I remember hearing a basketball being shot on the backboard, you know, out the window of my house. And I remember looking over down the window and being like, who's playing basketball over there? And it was this kid, but he was much bigger. He was, you know, 4 years older than me and much stronger, faster, more athletic. But I didn't have any friends, and I never saw this kid before. And so I just went out there and said, hey, can I come shoot with you? And he didn't have any friends because he had just moved there, right? So he was new to the town and new to his school, the high school. And I was in middle school. And we started playing. And he was an incredible kind of confidant, you know, athletic friend that we just started playing basketball together every single day. And this was the time when my body started to develop. I was 6'4" when I was 12. So I was this height, but I was kind of like goofy and gangly before then. And so I was just starting to develop as an athlete more and more around this age. So we would practice together every day. We would golf, we would play basketball, we would play any sport we could play. But a lot of it was going to the local rec community center where they'd have pickup basketball every night. So all the guys would come out from the town and they'd just run games all night from 3 till 10 p.m. And we would go. And one of the things that I realized, he would always have me on the team. He was better than me and he was older than me, but he would always have me on his team. He would pick me because we were neighbors. And he always would look out for me. And I never had that in any peers before this. So it was an incredible friendship that I developed for about a year before I had left. And the thing that I realized early on, we were always playing against 16, 17, and 18-year-olds or up, and we would win a lot. We would win and just stay on the court and keep running. Because when you win the game, then the next team comes up and you just keep playing. So we would play 5, 6, 7 games a night and just constantly be winning. And I remember thinking, wow, okay, like I can play with high school varsity players as a 12-year-old, and I can keep up and I can excel. And that was one of the times where I got a lot of confidence, was kind of having this friend who was older and more talented, who always wanted to see me succeed and was always trying to lift me up and make me better. We would run sprints on the track and he'd always push me. And I'm always grateful for that experience because I just never had anyone in my life that would do that for me before then. Now my dad would come and play in the backyard here and there and he would show up and do that, but as like a friend, a peer, show up and really be there for me was an inspiring year before I left. And it developed me into being a much better athlete throughout high school, college, and pro because of that year.
It's so good that you could put yourself out there though. I think as a kid, I don't think I'd have the confidence to even say to the neighbor.
It was scary, but it was like, walk over there and just act like, can I come shoot a few with you?
I see the little brother in you there. Yeah, of course, man. Bothering the older kid.
Exactly.
Yeah. It worked for you.
Come hang out,
There's one thing you said there in the story before is that you would achieve goals and you would achieve exactly what you wanted to do, but then afterwards you would have this feeling of feeling depressed or empty.
Yes.
Again, is there a specific moment for you where you'd achieve something you thought you wanted?
Dude, I remember, we were talking about this off camera. When I was a kid, I would watch sports with my dad. Would watch college football, Ohio State football, which is a big thing in America. And he would talk about these All-American athletes on the TV. And I was like, what's an All-American athlete? And he goes, these are the best athletes in the country. At their position, they are the best. And I remember thinking, gosh, it'd be amazing to be like an All-American athlete one day. I was like 5, 6, 7 years old. I didn't really know what it would take, but I was like, wow, you're watching these guys on TV. They look like gladiators, And I was like, man, these guys are getting talked about the most. They're getting all the accolades. They're getting, the playing time, everything. Okay, so I want to be an All-American athlete. And I remember in college, my sophomore year in college, so my second year in college, I broke a world record that year. In one game, I had the most receiving yards in a single game, 418 yards in one game. Most people don't get that in a whole season. I got it in one game. And it was like all over the news and Sports Illustrated, and I broke this record. No one in college, pro, or high school had ever done this before. And that record stood for, I think, 10 or 12 years. I broke this record. I had, I think, the second or third most receiving yards in the whole year of the nation, but our team didn't do that well. And so I thought I should have been an All-American based on my stats, but since our team didn't excel that well, I didn't get it. And I remember being very frustrated. My junior year, I didn't do as well. We didn't have as good enough team, and the quarterback wasn't as good, and so I struggled my junior year. And I remember thinking like, okay, I need to make a change. If I really want this dream to happen, it's not going to happen at the current school because we don't have a good quarterback and the team is not as developed. So I transferred my senior year to go to another school. And this school had an All-American quarterback and it was a much better team. I go there, in the third game of the season, I break my ribs. I get hit with a helmet in the ribs. 3 ribs break, and I'm out for the rest of the season. For the next 3 months, I'm recovering. So my senior year of college football, my what I thought was my final chance to be an All-American athlete. I get injured, and I'm kind of like, okay, my dreams are over. But in football in college, since it was the third game, I was able to get that year back and redo that year. If it would have been like the sixth game, it would have been too many games to play. So I got to play one more year. But I remember before that final season, I said, you know what? I've always loved track and field. Maybe I can be an All-American decathlete. And I was a high jumper. I'd done track and field my freshman year of college, and I was a really good high jumper, and I could run pretty fast. And I called my coach up when I'm injured from my freshman year coach at another school that I played at. And I said, what do you think is the chance that I could be an All-American decathlete this year? And I'd never done the decathlon. And she said, if you do everything I tell you, the national championships are 6 months away. If you do everything I tell you from this phone call on, there's a chance. But you have to do everything I tell you to do. And everything has to work out perfectly. And that's all I needed to hear, that there's a chance. She said, there's a chance, and I said, I'll do whatever. I cut out all sugar for the next 6 months. I trained 2-3 times a day. I did everything she told me to do. And it was an incredible 6-month journey, and it got down to the last event. I qualified for the national championships. There's 16 guys that qualify for an event. But 8, the top 8 make All-American. It comes down to the last event. I'm in 10th place, and it's the 1500. So for the decathlon, it's 2 days, 10 events, 5 events a day. And that's considered one event, right? The 10 event decathlon. So it's the last event, it's a 1500. I'm not that good at the 1500. I'm more of a sprinter. This is almost a mile. And she's like, you need to beat these people. If you beat them, I think you're gonna have enough points to get top 8. But you have to beat them. And so I'm exhausted. I have no energy left. It's the last day. And I run as fast as I can, 4 laps around the track. And I remember it being very close at the end. It's where it's all a calculation of points based on seconds and points and all these different things. And I remember thinking I had to wait 15, 20 minutes until they tallied up the points and they started to announce the All-American team. And I remember thinking, like, this is it. I either blew it or I made the team. And my lifelong dream is either gonna come true or I'm gonna fall short and I'm gonna be a failure. And on the intercom, the announcer says, okay, we're gonna count down from 8th place until 1st place. So I either knew, if they don't say my name right away, I didn't get it. And they said in 8th place, Lewis House, All-American. And I remember I get the chills thinking about it. I remember like going up on stage and getting the All-American plaque and being so emotional and so excited for what I did. It took me almost 15 years to accomplish, right? This vision, this dream, all this pain, all this loneliness, sadness, training to accomplish this dream. And I remember about an hour afterwards, being at dinner with my parents were there, my teammates, my coach, and being the most miserable, unhappy person, moody, angry, frustrated, just didn't want to be around anyone. And I didn't know what was wrong with me, but I was just so unhappy. And I think it's because I was driven by a pain, by a wound, by frustration to try to achieve success. I was doing it to prove people wrong, not to prove myself or others right. And that proving people wrong mentality got me so far. But at the end of the day, left me feeling so alone. And I didn't know how to shake it. I didn't know how to get out of it. And so I said, you know what? I'm still not good enough. I need to go for a greater, bigger goal. Let me get back into training mode. The next day I'm into training. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go back to play football my 5th year, senior year now, to be an All-American again. I'm gonna be a 2-sport All-American. And I go the whole season, and we almost make it to the national championship, and we lose to the national champions in the quarterfinals. And I break another school record, my last game. And I get All-American status in football. So back-to-back years, back-to-back sports, 2-sport All-American. This is unheard of. It's so rare to have 2 different sports and be an All-American in. And I remember being happy for about 10 minutes and then being miserable. And I still didn't understand. I go, okay, I need to go play professional football. I need to do this. I need to go make $1 million. And that went on for the next 8 years until I realized something is off. Like being driven by success alone is not enough. I need to be driven by significance, by purpose, by mission, and by service. And when I do that, that is the true fulfillment when I become successful. When I achieve something great, I can actually receive it and appreciate it, as opposed to be frustrated, angry, and depressed still, and feeling like, oh, it's still not enough, I need more. I can still be driven by significance and service and be driven to create more, but also know that I am enough in this moment. And it's never good enough, it's never good enough. Yes, I am enough, and look what I've created, let's celebrate it, and cool, what's the next adventure? And if it succeeds or not, it doesn't matter because I'm proud of me for how I'm showing up every day. And so it took me a long time of pain and suffering with the success to realize how to shift the mindset and the energy to feel fulfilled in the journey as well.
Yeah, the shift in mindset, so important. I think...
What's resonating with you? How does this relate to
I knew
your life?
So the biggest one is the gold statue. Let's say the gold statue, for me, it's a BAFTA. Like, I've had this obsession in my head, to win a BAFTA. That's my...
What is that?
So, what a BAFTA, or what the obsession is? Well, a BAFTA is an award for excellency in film,
Ooh, okay.
So documentary film. It's like the British equivalence of the Academy Awards.
Wow, okay.
So that's been my obsession, that's my screensaver, it's,
Interesting.
But I do feel like it's probably driven from proving people wrong.
Yes.
I do have a meaningful mission in my,
good.
I believe I have a meaningful mission, and that's what I wake up every day for. But there still is I need this gold trophy, I need approval, I need to, I need the industry to say I'm welcome here, and all that kind of stuff.
Because you feel like an outsider.
Completely.
You didn't go to film school. You weren't accepted into something.
Yeah, everything.
And everyone was like, "What are these weird documentaries? It's not really like a film.
It's YouTube. It's
Who is this social media guy trying to do this weird like inspirational motivation thing, thinking he's someone."
Yeah, you got it. Yeah,
and proving people wrong can get you a long way.
Yeah,
it can get you. It can get you everything you want, and also feeling completely alone and empty at the end of the day.
But before we did this, you said, this is amazing where you're at for 31. My mindset straight away, and it's just, my girlfriend says stuff like that to me all the time, and I'm like, no, but I'm not here, I'm not there. Like, and it's, there's some negative connotations to it for me, because I'm like, well, I don't see that. I don't see the positivity.
And a lot of people say, I want to keep that mentality because I don't want to lose my edge. I don't want to lose my drive.
I want to dive into that,
I don't want to get soft.
Yeah.
And I hear that a lot of people like, you need a chip on your shoulder, and you need to be able to prove people wrong, because if you don't, you're going to get weak and soft. And that's not the case, because what I learned is when I lived that way, I was extremely mentally tough and hard. And at the same time, I feel like you're kind of emotionally weak if you're unable to have emotional agility.
Yeah.
If you're like, no, I cannot be vulnerable, I have to show strength at all times, then it's like, you're kind of rigid. And I feel like you can be broken easier, or you can be more reactive, because you have to have something, you expect it to be a certain way, and if it doesn't happen, you're broken inside if you don't reach that goal or that thing. And what I've learned, and it's not a perfect science, but what I've learned is I am more driven than ever to serve and to reach my vision. But I feel like I have a sense of renewable energy, as opposed to energy that just burns out constantly, where I'm exhausted. And I feel like that is an edge long term, because when you think of the greats, you don't think of someone who made it to the top for a year. You think about it, how they did it for decades. Think of Tom Brady, who just retired, 20-something years at the top. He had renewable energy that was able to keep him sustaining. Now, he had a chip on his shoulder that he talked about a lot, and I think that he could have gone even farther if he had maybe a little bit more harmony inside of him. Or you see, a breakup in his relationship. So something else had to give for that drive, as opposed to a renewable energy that goes beyond that, right? So I think it's learning how can I have harmony within me, but also want to create more. You know, it doesn't mean I have to get soft. I can be driven to serve at a bigger level because that's my purpose and my mission. And it doesn't need to be about dominating everyone and winning at all costs and being number one all the time. We can strive. I still want to be the best I can be. I still want to get awards and be acknowledged for being the first and doing the most innovative stuff. I still want that, but it doesn't define me as well. And I think it's understanding how to have that awareness that I'm driven for service and more, and I'm also going to celebrate where I am now, so that I don't miss all these moments in my life.
I think for me now is I'm finding that balance. That's where I'm at. You know, I'm finding that balance. But it's funny, when around a year and a half, 2 years ago, I started therapy. First time ever, you know, really good. Like I've spoken before about, like, I really do think people should dive into it. So I started weekly therapy sessions.
Wow, amazing, man.
Yeah, and when I got onto the call for the first time, wonderful therapist, and I still use to this day. And I said to her, look, I'll do this, but the one thing I don't want you to do is try and take this thing away from me that I've got. So I've got this
drive,
this pain that So for me, I've spoke about this before. I lost my son, and that's where all my power came from. Or so I felt. It was like invincibility, you know, like no one can touch me because I've been through this, so I can achieve anything. And I said to her, you know, like, I don't want to heal to lose that. I don't want to lose that power. And and we had a long conversation. And
what did she say?
She said, I'm not going to make you do anything you don't want to do. Right. You know, that was the first thing she said. I'm not going to make you do anything you don't want to do. And so we went through that journey, and, you know, dug up a ton of trauma around that. And I'd still say I hold on to some of the pain. Around my son, it's completely sort of let go, and it's been so fulfilling and rewarding.
Yes.
But I still definitely hold on to some pain, and there's still some soul searching there for sure that needs fixing.
Yeah, and I think it's a journey. You know, I still have memories that cause a reaction or a feeling of frustration. I just don't hold on to them for as long as I used to, and I'm not driven by them. So it doesn't mean I'm still not sad of the things that happened or experiences.
Yeah.
I'm not happy that I was sexually abused. I'm not happy that my brother was in jail and I didn't have friends. I'm not happy that I struggled in school. It's not like I wished that others have that same experience also. But I've reframed the meaning of it to give me greater purpose. I've reframed the story to being an empowering story as opposed to disempowering. There's still sadness, there's still grief and loss that I can hold on to and reflect on, but I don't want it to define me and hold me back. And what I have realized is that wholeness inside of me, harmony inside of me, is the best version of myself. Feeling empty, feeling like I've lost a piece of me, feeling like I'm angry, feeling like I'm needing to prove some people that picked me last wrong for the rest of my life, doesn't serve me in creating harmony. And when I'm in harmony, my heart is open and I'm able to love people deeper. And when we love people deeper and we share our energy with the people around us or our purpose, and it's full of love, that energy is the most powerful energy to pursue your dreams and accomplish your purpose. The emptiness feeling inside of you, or part of you, the brokenness inside of you, and being driven by that, whenever we accomplish something, it still will not fulfill us into harmony and wholeness. So we must create wholeness in the journey. And it's not an overnight thing. It takes time sometimes to process. It's taken me years, and it's still an ongoing journey. So it's not like I'm whole and perfect, and now everything's good to go. I'm always getting back to a place of harmony so that I can show up fully for my fiance, my soon-to-be wife, so I can show up better for my team, so I can make clearer, more conscious decisions in my work, so that I'm not emotional eating and binge eating to try to like numb the feelings, but I'm processing feelings so that I can make wiser, conscious decisions for my future self. It's all those things together, because if you've got big dreams, great, go for them, awesome. But do our best to go after them out of love, not anger or lack.
Thank you for that. I love that. That's fantastic. For me, it is a process. I'm in that process. I would say this is a question I really wanted to ask you whilst looking, through your healing journey. Is I attacked. There's a word right there. I used therapy very much as a problem solve. Like that's how I work. Like there's a goal. I'm going to fix this.
Yes.
There's so it's very specific. Like this trauma is going to get fixed, and that's what we're working on right now. When I got to the end of that, and I started to feel like I got through that part of that journey, there are other parts that are also difficult. But therapy is draining. It's painful. It's draining.
It's not fun.
How did you go? Once you'd got through?
I have spent 8-hour sessions on Saturdays doing therapy with my therapist. 8 hours of nonstop therapy, and I'm just like, all I want to do is go hang out at the beach and relax. But I know on the other side is peace, and I can keep doing the same things I've been doing and get results, but I'm not getting fulfillment and peace and not feeling the love that I want to feel still. So why? Okay, well, I've got to dive in deeper then. I've got to keep doing some work. And again, I don't think you need to be every week spending 8 hours a day, doing therapy. I don't think that's what it's about. I think we want to live our lives, and we need space and time to reflect and process it. But I remember just struggling in relationships, and in a previous relationship, really struggling, and we were doing couples therapy, and I was just like, I need to figure out the solution to this. I can't keep living this way. It's up and down, it's emotional, it's too much for me, I can't do this. So either we need to figure out a solution in the relationship, or we need to heal and not be together. So I was willing to do whatever it took and have as much coaching and therapy as possible. But it can feel draining and exhausting. It's not fun. I still don't enjoy it every time I do it now, and things are good, but I keep going when it's good so it doesn't get bad. I don't enjoy it every time, but I know that it's going to benefit me.
Do you worry about unpacking something? So we had this analogy in therapy when we first started speaking, is you've got this suitcase and you open it up and there's a mess, and you've got all these different things, and what we're going to do is remove these things and we're going to start packing them back in. And that analogy really worked visually for me.
Yes.
Sometimes I worry now that I'm going to open that up and I'm going to unpack. A portion of it is going to be so messy, and it's going to rock me again. Because those 2 years, I'm in a better place now, but those 2 years were difficult. And there's a fear for me of unpacking something and going, right, here we go again. Here's 3-4 months of trying to get through this again.
I don't think it's wise to unpack anything that traumatic on your own, personally. Because then if you don't have the support to get out of it, it could be a downward spiral for months or years. And I've been in that place in the past where I'm just like in my bed, ruminating, eating crap all day, binge watching TV for weeks, and I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Because you can get trapped in that cycle of trauma or stress or overwhelm or grief or pain or make wrong or blame, as opposed to, okay, this happened, how can I create a new story and a new meaning about this story? How can I start to mend and process, and what's the game plan to move forward? And I think a lot of people get stuck in their traumas, and they either are in it so deep that it depresses and consumes them, or they block it so much and they just say, I'm going to work out harder, I'm going to make more money, I'm going to sleep with more people, whatever it is, to numb those emotions. So that's where addictions get into place. We want to numb the pain as opposed to process and face the pain. And I had my own types of addictions. I never was drunk or did drugs, but it was like I was driven to prove people wrong every day. And it was like I was driven to make people wrong, to prove them that I was better and that they will never hurt me again. That was like the anger, the fuel. And it was an addiction, and it felt good until it didn't. Until every time I was like, yeah, I'm right, I won. Then like later at night, I'm like, oh, but they still don't want to hang out with me. It's like, what's the point of this? Being alone and feeling like empty still. So the fear of unpacking, I don't feel like I'm afraid to unpack anything, because of all my memories that I have, I feel like I've addressed so many of them to the point where I feel like I can handle any conversation with my psyche. Like I can handle it. It may be extremely painful. I may feel sad and emotionally overwhelmed for a few days, but I've gotten out of it before with the right support and coaching and therapy, and I know I can get through it again. Doing it on your own, I don't think is the wise thing to do. Doing it with support, with the right timings, I think will only make you a stronger, better human.
Okay.
But you don't have to do everything all at once, though. It's like you went through a very traumatic event, which you processed, and I think give yourself space and time. And then I'm always thinking, how can I don't know when I'm going to die. I don't know. I hope it's a long time from now. But I do know is I want to make sure I'm developing my gifts and talents every day and using them to serve people. And if I'm living in the past, pain or trauma, or I'm allowing some negative emotion to dictate my actions, to hold back my love for people or my mission, and to allow me to stay in fear and self-doubt versus taking action and going for it, I just know I'm going to regret that. And so I know that coaching, therapy, mentorship, guidance, whatever you want to call it, is going to help me overcome the things that keep me held back. And that's what I'm looking to do. How can I get beyond myself, the limiting self, every single day into my authentic self?
If you're enjoying this podcast episode with Lewis Howes, please consider supporting us at Mulliganbrothers.com, where you can get the Not a Journal, the success journal that actually leads to success. It's a journal that gets stuff done, and also the Memento Mori posters. This poster is my life plotted out right here. It's tiny squares that represent a week of my life, which I fill in each week. And when I went through the process of filling this in, it had this monumental impact on me to realize how precious time was, how important time was. It really was a life-changing moment for me, this poster. So thank you so much to everyone who has also given us feedback and got a lot out of the journal and the poster. They are linked down below, so get ready for 2024. And if you just want to support us, you can get the Inspire Change t-shirts and hoodies also linked down there too. Thank you for watching these episodes, and make sure you're subscribed and hit the notification bell. But let's dive back into it. How there's in fact, we'll take it from the low moment, because this is a part where I feel like you started to go down the route of, I'm going to try and have growth and self-improvement. There's a moment that you quote quite regularly where it was, you were sleeping on your sister's couch. Yes. Could you give us context to that time period? And then also, my sort of question is, and I see this a lot with successful people or the people that we interview, is a lot of them had these very specific rock bottom moments where they grew from, and yes. And it was that, for them, it was through that moment. Do we need those moments?
I don't know if we need them, but I know that if we learn to embrace and overcome them, we'll be that much stronger. And I do believe that we need adversity, whether that's self-imposed adversity, which most people don't like to do, or having some breakdowns in life where the universe creates it for us that teaches us what we need to learn and how to overcome something. And most people want to live a comfortable life. And so pain will come to them from the universe because they're not disciplined enough to create structured pain. You're a fit guy, which tells me daily you're doing some things that are painful. You're going to the gym, you're disciplining yourself on the foods you eat, you're not having stuff that is going to make you overweight. There's certain things you have to do on a daily basis to be in shape the way you are now. So I know you structure pain and adversity in your life, which is going to support you to get peace. But when we live a comfortable life and we don't have any of that, that's when we'll start to get sickness, disease, and other challenges will come. And then we'll have to learn how to deal with that pain, and it's going to hurt more. So you just get to choose the pain that you want. But for me, that time was extremely painful because I had a dream to be a professional football player. I was playing arena football. So I was making some money, but it wasn't like retirement money. It was enough to get by week. But I was playing in front of 15, 20,000 people as a professional football player, living my dream. That's what I always wanted to do. But I got injured, I broke my wrist, and I was in a cast from here to here for 6 months in this position while the wrist was mending and recovering. I didn't have any money. I was living in debt from student loans. And this was right at the end of 2007 and 2008 when the economy in America was crashing. The housing market crashed, the economy crashed. People weren't getting jobs, people were out of jobs. I left college early to go play football. So I didn't have a college degree. So people weren't hiring people with master's degrees, let alone people that barely passed college and didn't graduate yet. And my grades were not that good. It was just enough to be able to play football. So I didn't think I had any skills that would get me a job. I didn't have a degree. I didn't really know where I could work because I never thought about working outside of playing sports. So luckily my sister had a house in Columbus, Ohio. She let me stay with her. Originally it was supposed to be for a couple months, but it was a year and a half. And this was a dark time for me because I was in denial. I thought I'm gonna heal up, I'm gonna come back and play football. Month after month, I stayed in this cast because it was not healing. So it took 6 months in the cast. I get the cast off. My arm is so weak. I don't know if you've ever broken a bone, but it took me another, about a year till I could fully stretch my elbow, and my flexibility never really fully came back. So it took a while to get strength. So I realized, oh, I'm not playing football again. My dream is over. And that was sad. That was extremely sad because that's all I ever wanted. And I didn't know what was next. I had no backup plan, no skills that I thought were transferable to make money and get a job. But during this time, I had a lot of free time. And it was around, again, at the end of 2007, I got a book for Christmas. My only gift that I got for Christmas was one gift, and it was a book. It was The 4-Hour Workweek, Tim Ferriss. And this book I read in about 3 days. And being dyslexic, you know how hard that is to finish a book in general, but to do it in 3 days was a miracle. And it came to me at the right time. It came to me at a time where I needed something to put my attention. And it just opened up a world of online marketing and online business and working for yourself and all these different things. And I was like, what is this world? I didn't even know about this. I didn't know how to make money. And I had all this time on my hands where on my sister's couch, I'm on the laptop all day, and I'm kind of just going through blogs and learning more about the things that he was talking about in this book, and just like learning as much as I could and trying to meet the people online. And Twitter was a thing at this time, and LinkedIn, so I was using LinkedIn to connect with people. It was kind of the early stages of social media. And after a year and a half of doing this, I finally started to develop some skills. I started using LinkedIn and teaching about LinkedIn to other business owners. I was thinking I was gonna go get a job, but I was trying this LinkedIn thing on the side, and I started to make a couple $100 here and there. So I was like, okay, what do I do? And I eventually just kind of went all in on this and realized, okay, I'm pretty decent at online marketing. And I started this online marketing company that after a few years started to really take off.
So you sell that company?
Yes.
How, at that point, significant money?
Just 7 figures, yeah.
At that point, was there any want to just go, right, cool, I'll just rest on this now? And
well, I remember thinking I sold the company to my business partner at the time. I think I was like 27, 28. And I moved to New York City to go pursue my dream of being an Olympian. So I still wanted to play sports. It wasn't out of me, this competitive athlete wasn't out of me. And in 2008, I had just gotten my cast off. I was sleeping on my sister's couch, but I was watching the Olympics. It's my favorite 2 weeks of every 4 years is the Olympics. I'm watching the Olympics, but I'm still recovering. It's in the summer of 2008, Beijing, and I see a sport that I'd never seen before for the first time called team handball. And it was at 3 a.m. in the morning. They're showing all the obscure sports that no one watches. And I see the sport and I go, what is this? This is fascinating. And I'm watching these guys play and I go, this looks like the sport was made for me. It feels like this is what I was supposed to play my entire life. It's got the quickness, the speed, the arm strength, all these different things. I go, this is my sport. And I start researching online to see where are there teams in the US, or handball teams in the US. I couldn't find anything in Ohio. But there were a number of club teams in the bigger cities. And the New York City team had, they were the national champions in club teams for team handball. And I said to myself, this is when I was broke on my sister's couch. And I said to myself, when I make enough money, I'm going to move to New York City. I'm going to make this team on the New York team, and then I'm going to make the USA team, and then I'm going to go to the Olympics. But I had no money, and I had no idea how I was going to do this. But fast forward 2.5 years later, I make enough money, I sell this company, I move to New York City, I show up to practice randomly because they had the address of where they practiced and the time. I show up randomly, I go in through the gym, and I'm the only American there. It's all European guys who had moved to New York City, who used to be professionals in Europe that are now playing and living in New York City. And I show up randomly. They have no idea who I am. I say, my name is Lewis House. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I'm a former professional football player. My goal is to make the USA national team and be an Olympian. And they all laughed at me. They were all speaking different languages, laughing at me, cracking up. And they said, this is our last practice of the season. We just won the national championship last week. We're here to just do a fun practice. Come back in 3 months when we start again. I say, okay, tell me when it is, and I'll be back. 3 months goes by, I show up again. 3 months later, the first practice of the next season, I say, here's who I am, and here's my mission. They laugh again. But they're like, okay, let's have this guy play with us and see how he does. I play the whole 9-month season. 9 months later, I get the call to be on the USA national team. I go to Buenos Aires, I play in the Pan Am Championships, and my world opens up to a new world of possibilities. It was incredible to wear a USA on my chest, sing the national anthem, and play against Olympic teams. It was like I could taste the Olympics. But the challenge is we hadn't qualified for the Olympics in like 20 years before then. And so it was going to be really challenging for us to qualify. This was back in 2000, when was this now? 2012 when this happened. So 11 years ago. And I remember thinking, I really hope we get the bid for 2016. In Chicago was trying to get the Olympic bid to be in the USA. And if that's the case, then we're an automatic qualifier. We don't have to win a tournament, we're automatically in. But we never got it for 2016 or 2020. So it never happened, but I've traveled the world. I played professionally in Spain with the handball team. I played against the national team of Israel, played in the UK, in London, at the Olympic facility in London, all through South America, Brazil, Uruguay, Argentina, Mexico, Canada. You know, I played everywhere, and it's been an incredible journey. But here's the thing, even though I didn't yet accomplish my goal of being an Olympian, it doesn't mean I was a failure. I've had 9-10 years of incredible experiences of representing my country, living moments that I dreamed of as a kid. And just because I didn't accomplish the greatest goal that I had yet of being an Olympian, doesn't mean it hasn't been worth it. The relationships, the experiences, the lessons, the wins, the losses, all of it has been a beautiful experience. So I don't beat myself up. I celebrate what I've created.
I want to combine two of my favorite quotes. One was Dwayne Johnson, which is super relevant to yourself. I'm paraphrasing, I'll mash this up, but when he speaks about he had the goal of going to the NFL. Do you know this quote? Yeah. So he had the goal of going to the NFL, and then he didn't achieve that thing. And looking back, not achieving that goal was one of the best things that ever happened to him. And then the reason I wanted to connect it to another quote was Steve Jobs saying, you can't connect the dots looking forward, but you can looking back. How important is it to have goals, even if you don't achieve them?
Well, here's the thing. Something, about 4 or 5 years ago, I was going through like a challenging breakup. Maybe 6 years ago, 4 or 5, 6 years ago, I was going through a challenging breakup. And I remember I was kind of like, it wasn't a good breakup. There was like bad things said about me online, and I was kind of like questioning, like, oh, I thought these guys were my friends and they're talking bad about me, and it was kind of like, why is this happening? I was feeling a lot of overwhelm and pressure, sadness, loss, and anger. I was like, why is this happening? And I remember I was interviewing a friend of mine at the time, someone I just met named Robin Sharma, who wrote the book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. I don't know if you've seen this book or no. Yeah, you've heard of it, yeah. And I'm meeting him for the first time, and this just happened maybe a couple weeks before, and I'm like going through this like, kind of sad moment, and I was like, why is this happening? This is frustrating. And he said to me, a bad day for the ego is a great day for the soul. And I said, that's interesting. And he goes, just think about all the different pain you've had in your past. And he was telling me some of the stuff that he'd been through, and he's like, all these things that happened in your past, from the injury in football to being sexually abused, to my brother going to prison, to not having friends in middle school, and all the different challenges, they all made you a better person today. Like the things you learned from those challenges has given you the purpose, the drive to care about people deeper, to want to serve people, to want to lift others up. If you didn't go through those experiences, you wouldn't have the heart and the mindset you have now. And something clicked in me in that moment. As he was telling me this, I go, you know what? We need to start connecting the dots forward. Like you said with the Steve Jobs quote, I think we can connect the dots forward. And people always say hindsight is 20/20, but what we need to start doing is having future hindsight and going into the future 10 years to our future self and start reflecting back on why this is happening now and start writing the story from the future of the now. If we can see the story, how it unfolded of the past, why can't we go into the future? Why can't you go 10 years into the future when you're 40 and say, you know what? The reason why all these people said that I shouldn't be in the film industry and all these different things and, saying being a YouTuber and all this stuff, like, here's why it needed to happen this way. And as your 40-year-old self, imagining all the things you've created up until that moment and the things that you had to overcome, the lessons it gave you, the skill sets that you have that no one else has because of the adversity, because of the pain, because of the loss. I'm not saying it's fun. I'm not saying you wish it would happen. I'm not saying you wish it wouldn't have turned out differently. I'm not saying I wish I would have been sexually abused again. I'm not saying I wish my brother went to prison. I'm not saying I wish I was a second grade reading level in 8th grade and was picked on and made fun of. That was not fun. But I do know the person I am today because I chose to be empowered and overcome those things. And I do know that I would not care about human beings as much if I didn't have those adversities. I would not care about impacting lives. I'd be more obsessed with me and wanting to look good. I wouldn't care about what you feel about and how I can serve you. And that has given me more fulfillment today and will give me more fulfillment the rest of my life living in service rather than trying to live in success. And without those challenges and adversities, I wouldn't have that belief and that mindset. And I loved the story that I had Matthew McConaughey on twice. And I asked him this question because I loved his acceptance speech from the Oscars, I think it was, when he said, I'm chasing my hero who's 10 years away. And I asked him this question, I go, what is your 10-year self in the future giving yourself advice on now, knowing all the adversities and ups and downs you're going to go through for the next 10 years? And he reflected on it, and he was like talking about these experiences. And I think all of us should go into the future and just know that if we can go into the future, we're going to be much wiser. We're going to have battle scars. We're going to have ups and downs. There's going to be things that happen. When we pursue something meaningful, life happens. And unexpected things happen, both beautiful and challenging. And so if you could go into your future self, knowing what the last 10 years were and where you are now from 10 years ago, when you were 20 and what you were going through and all the pain you went through that gave you skills and experience now. As painful as these things happen to you, you may not take some of these things back because of what you've gained from it. You may not want it to happen, and it's very sad, but you also know I've made something great from the pain, from the adversity, as unfortunate and sad and horrible as some things can be in the world. And I'm not saying life is supposed to be this easy experience, but it can be fulfilling and meaningful if we find the meaning in the pain. And you know, man's search for meaning, Viktor Frankl talks about between stimulus and response is a pause. And it's finding that meaning, that interpretation between events, between experiences, no matter how painful or beautiful they are. How do we find meaning and interpret them so that it benefits us, it doesn't hurt us? And he saw incredible pain. Thousands of people dying around him, family members, friends. And he was able to find peace and harmony and forgiveness. And I'm not saying he wishes it would happen again, but he gained a lot of value from that pain because he created new meaning around it. And I think that's what we got to do, is start connecting the dots in the future to where we are now, as opposed to looking back. And start building our own meaning for that future.
I love that. I mean, that's some mental task. That's some mental task. I think, I mean, I've got a lot of work to do. Like when I think about that, I love the idea of literally putting yourself in that headspace. I think opening up the mindset or the thought process of when things are difficult, things are hurting you, things are feeling bad, to have the mindset of where's the growth here?
How is this going to serve me?
How's it going to serve you? And I agree with you. I wouldn't change anything that had happened to me. I wouldn't, which is very difficult because to say that, because I remember after Jacob died, a doctor came into the hospital and he was like, a pastor came into the hospital, and he said to me, I wasn't ready to hear it. He said something along the lines of, God has his reasons, God has it.
And you're like, screw God.
Yeah, exactly that. For me, and then I would say the next 3 or 4 years, I was like, I can see what the catalyst, I can see what this has caused me to do. Like, I want to try and help people. I don't want people to feel this pain. And,
yes.
I want people to be able to go through these situations with guidance. But it still felt cruel to me. It's still very much,
100%.
Yeah, it felt super cruel. Like, well, I couldn't, if God's, could do this, why couldn't he give me this without taking this from me? It's the way of the world. It doesn't work like that,
But you also wouldn't have the spiritual gifts that you have without that pain. You wouldn't have the drive to change lives the way you do.
It has to happen. It's horrible to say. It's horrible to say. It has to happen.
It's unfortunate.
It's shit. Yeah.
It's extremely unfortunate.
Yeah. But yeah, and now, like, facing situations now, just with the perspective you've just said about the 40-year self, there's a huge comfort for me, as you've said that, in the idea of giving myself 10 years. Because I know time heals. Like, I know that time, time, eventually I will be in a good place and I will be healed from something. And when I think of specific situations now that might pain me or hurt me, I give myself 10 years. I'm like, well, that's, I'm easy. Like, I'm good. There will be growth there. And I can think of it more objectively.
And where you, when you were 20 or 19 and you were playing basketball and you broke your ankle or dislocated it and you were like, oh, why is this happening to me? But if you would have been a successful basketball player and played for 5 or 6 years, you wouldn't be doing this. You wouldn't be impacting the lives you're making an impact on. Hundreds of millions of views and reach and billions of impact, whatever it is. You're serving people to overcome challenges and pain and give them inspiration and storytelling and hope and make them feel something inside that they are capable of doing themselves based on the work you're doing now. And maybe you could have done that as a basketball player, but probably not at this level. Probably not.
No.
Right? You could have had a lot of fun and accomplished your goals and inspired the people who are watching in the arena and the people around you, but then you wouldn't have gotten the head start on this journey if you would have played for another 5 or 6 years.
Approached by somebody who's in the moment of pain, how do you, or maybe a year or two after that pain, but it's still lingering, how do you tell them to have faith?
Well, I mean, if someone's in the middle of pain, I don't know if I would tell them, like, it's all going to be okay right away. For me, I think I probably did that in the past, and I would just more sit with people and say, I'm really sorry you're going through this. This is really unfortunate, really sad. I would embrace the feelings that they're having right now and allow them to feel it. Because I think a lot of us sometimes create a spiritual bypass or an emotional bypass, and they just try to not feel their emotions or not process and not allow them to grieve for a period of time. And they just go right on to the next thing. And I don't think that's healthy. I think when you feel sadness, experience it. When you have a loss, grieve it. When you feel pain, allow yourself to feel it. We get stuck in those emotions when we lack a meaningful mission. When we don't have a drive, a purpose, a vision we're working towards, then we feel lost. We feel, why is this happening? We feel like, why did this happen to me? Why now? What am I supposed to do? What's the purpose of my life? We go back to these questions of why me? What's my purpose? And we lack clarity. That's why one of the first things I talk about in kind of my book and in my process is getting clear on your meaningful mission for this season of life. And when we go through a loss of an injury or a dream, and you can't do that thing anymore, we've got to grieve that loss and then reevaluate in a new season of life. Okay, I'm going to try new things to discover what that mission is. And maybe I'm not going to know. Maybe for 3 to 6 months, I'm not going to know what my mission is, and that's okay, but I'm going to explore things that I'm curious about. When we were a kid, you probably played a bunch of sports growing up, like most kids do. And parents will put us in piano lessons and guitar and singing class and sports and activities. They allow us to explore and try things. They usually don't keep us in something if we suck at it, right? Unless they're, crazy and they want us to be great at that thing. But they usually try to say, okay, we tried these 7 things. They're really good at these 2 or 3. Let's develop them in that. And I think as adults, we forget to try new things, a lot of things that we might be interested in, because we feel like if we're not good, we fail. But as kids, we fail all the time, and we just move towards a thing that we're more interested in. And allow yourself that season when you lose a dream, when you lose a job, when you lose a relationship, and it's gone, to try and explore new things until you develop that meaningful mission.
What's your meaningful mission?
This season of life is to impact 100 million lives weekly, to help them improve the quality of their life. That's the goal. And so everything I do, every decision I make, is based on serving that mission at the highest level. So I say yes and no to things based on if I believe or think it could support that mission, if it can maximize my time to making that happen faster. And we were talking about this off camera where, I've said no to a lot of money-making opportunities where I could make a lot more money, and it's hard to say no to those things because I believe it's not serving me in accomplishing that mission faster and at a more effortless process, right? It's like a harder way of doing things. So I'm trying to align my talents and my gifts and my time to serve my mission better. And life is messy, man. Things happen when you work with people, and you've got algorithms and processes and content and all these different things, and life happens. So it's constantly aligning myself towards the mission.
I had so many questions, over the last few weeks, knowing that, I was coming here to speak to you, and you're in a position where I am like striving for, and I want Mulliganbrothers to sort of strive towards. So I was like, I have all these questions, our company is busy. We have so many different things going off. And I think you've just answered it there.
Do you know what your mission is?
I know exactly what the mission is. I'm just not mission-led. I would say that's the issue. I would say
it might be opportunity-led.
Maybe opportunity-led. And don't get me wrong, like these things do definitely lead towards the mission, but are they the most efficient?
Right, and there's a season of trying and a bunch of different stuff. So it's not like, okay, I'm wrong and bad.
I could make better decisions though, I definitely can.
Yeah, and it's just like, we as a leader, you're gonna have to make, difficult decisions. Okay, this is bringing in a lot of money over here. Maybe we keep it going for another 6 to 12 months, or maybe we try to use that time and energy towards building the thing that could potentially be greater towards our mission in the future. It doesn't have to be, okay, we're cutting everything out of our lives right now and just doing this. For me, it was like a 2-3 year journey of like unwinding the old online marketing me. The thing that I was known for, good at, online courses, selling on webinars, masterminds, all these things that, speaking at a lot of events, like all these things I was great at and good at. It was making a lot of money, but it wasn't serving the mission. So either I need to change the mission to something else, or change the things that were holding me back from the mission. And it was a gradual process. Okay, I'm gonna let go of this one thing for these next 6 months, then the next thing, then the next thing. So I don't wanna be broke and on the streets. It's learning to navigate the financial side and the opportunities as well.
Mm-hmm. I think the great filter of what is the mission, you know, and yeah, I love that. So one of the parts of our mission is for us to deliver our message and what we've been through, and to be able to speak to people. Stand on stage, to me, petrifying, you know, the idea of doing it. So this is what I wanted to ask you, because you've been very vocal about your journey with
Yeah, I was terrified.
First time stepping on stage, what was that experience?
My first speaking, I did it in front of like 25 people. And I remember going to a Tony Robbins event when I was 16. My dad got my mom and myself tickets in St. Louis when I was going to private school there. And he came and did a speech, like a 3-day event. And it was kind of like this, I don't know, mega event. Like Donald Trump was there, Larry King, it was like all these like world champion coaches and athletes and business leaders. It wasn't just him on stage, but it was like all of his friends in the industry giving speeches, and then him training, and there's probably 15,000 people there. And we were sitting on the floor. Imagine a basketball court with chairs covering the basketball court. We were probably at the halfway of the court, and the stage was over at the hoop area, right? And I'm sitting on the floor in the aisle. And at one point during the event, Tony is on stage most of the event, but he walks off the stage and he starts coming down the aisle. And I'm like, oh, he's getting closer, and he stops right next to me, and I'm sitting on the aisle. And here's this giant, you know, energy and a man. He's your height, big guy, but he is powerful presence. And I'm 16. This is my first time really being exposed to someone like this in person. And he stands over me, and he doesn't look at me, and I don't remember what he said, but he was speaking to the crowd about something, and I remember the way he made me feel. I don't remember the words, but I remember the energy. And I was like, wow, whatever he has, that energy, I want to be able to have one day. But I had zero confidence speaking in front of people, because in school I was getting made fun of. So I never got up in front of the class because I couldn't read aloud when they'd ask us to read aloud. So I was always terrified. But after school, and when I was injured on my sister's couch, recovering from the injury, I remember meeting a guy who was a public speaker, and this is all he did was get paid to speak. And I said, I have no idea how I could ever do this. I would love to be able to speak one day, but I don't think I have the confidence. And he said, if you truly want to influence people and impact people and enroll people in your vision, if you have a dream, you need to get people bought into your dream. You're going to need to be able to communicate, whether it's on a stage, in a conference room, at a company, you know, whatever you want to do, you're going to need to be able to communicate your message and get people bought into you. And he said the best way to do that is to lean into the fear and do it every week until it's not a fear anymore. And I was like, sounds terrifying. And he told me about a thing called Toastmasters, which is an international club that allows you to practice public speaking. And he said, I want you to go next week, find a club in Columbus, Ohio, find a club, join it, and go every week for a year. And that's what I did. It was one of the most terrifying things as a 23, 24-year-old. I found a club that was, for me, the scariest. I went to 4 or 5 different clubs in my city and walked in to check them out. And I saw one where I was like, this one terrifies me, because everyone is in their 40s, they're all in suits, they're incredible speakers, they're professionals, they have books, they're authors, and I was like, I need to go to the place where I'm the most afraid, not the least afraid. And my first speech, I gave a 5-minute speech. I prepared for 2 weeks for a 5-minute speech. And I remember I wrote the entire thing out on paper. And I got behind a podium and I stood up in front of this group, and I'm shaking for the whole 5 minutes, sweating. And this is when I had a cast on. So I have a cast on, I have a cutoff shirt, I'm sweating, and I'm looking at a podium, and I'm reading word for word. And even though I wrote the words and practiced it for 2 weeks, I'm still not a good reader. So it's like I'm stumbling over my own words, I'm stuttering, I feel like an idiot, and I'm reading word for word, and I'm flipping the page and going word for word, and I do my 5 minutes. And then I look up, and people are clapping, and you have to stand up there where people give you feedback. So now I'm getting feedback. I'm getting criticized essentially for the thing that I'm the most afraid of. but this is what we need to do. We need to go all in on our fears until the fears disappear. So I get up there, I get feedback, and I realize afterwards I'm still alive. I'm still alive, I haven't died, and I did one of the hardest things for me to do, which is get up. And then I went every week for the next year. And I got a little bit better every time. From behind the podium, to eventually in front of the podium with my notes, to eventually note cards, to eventually no notes, to eventually being able to connect with people and pause. And the practice of doing it every week for a year gave me so much confidence and courage to be able to take it out into the world. And I was still nervous speaking in front of audiences, but I had a lot more confidence and experience to be able to deliver and get through it. And 10, 15 years later, I have a lot more confidence now. And it's just because I was willing to commit to feeling so much fear and doing it anyways until it started to disappear. But it was definitely painful, man. It was one of the hardest things I ever did.
Putting your work out there is horrible. We had and receiving feedback.
It is.
The film that we're working on at the moment, we've had to put it in front of people.
Oh man, and you're like, I don't want this feedback.
It hurts, man. It hurts.
But that's what makes you better, man.
And it's the most progress we've had with the film. It's the most growth we've had in our careers for sure. Like just having people just destroy the work,
Most people
I tell you what,
like
it's good,
feedback,
but yeah, people hate it. Yeah, and you'd rather just not hear it and put subpar out.
But I think the greatest leaders are the ones that say, give me more.
Give me more, yeah.
Give me more, what else?
I want it, yeah, let me know. Yeah.
And that's what I think about when I interviewed Kobe. He was the type of guy that was like always looking for the great coaches to tell him, how can I improve? Like find the littlest thing that I can get better at. Give me more, give me more. I'm gonna drop 60 points, but where can I improve? Let me go back and watch the film. Coach me, how can I improve? How can I improve? And I think it was that mindset of not thinking, oh, I'm the best, don't give me feedback. I'm the best, and I want to continue to stay great and even get better. Give me more feedback. That's what I think the difference is between someone who's extremely confident in themselves and someone who's afraid of being criticized.
So this culture, I mean, the interview with Kobe, unbelievable, and I love to hear that he had this same mindset that you have. It's something I don't know if it's I don't see it in the UK or it's just, but I've been around it growing up, but the idea of like mentors and having, I can pinpoint in my head through childhood, like I had a coach, there was the maths teacher who would open the gym for me, those kind of.
And they were helpful.
Massively, but then going into my professional career, even up until this point, I've not formally had mentors. It's not something that we've developed as a culture, or maybe it's just something that, I don't know, is it this thing that you've found along the way?
I think there's people here that don't get mentors also, but I think growing up in sports and having a coach and then losing my dream of playing football, I remember on my sister's couch thinking, how am I gonna get a job? How am I gonna make money? How am I gonna survive? And I just said, I need to make life like a sport. And life can't be played alone. It needs to be played with a team. And in order for a team to be successful, we need a coach. So I was like, okay, who's on my team? Who's my coach? And I got multiple mentors that were just coaches of mine that would meet me once every couple of weeks and just spend 30 minutes with me. And I was like, okay, give me coaching, give me feedback. And then I would apply that and create little games in my mind. Okay, in the next 2 weeks, I'm gonna take on this task and challenge, and I'm gonna bring it back to you and show you what I did. And that gave me support, not trying to do it on my own. It gave me I feel like it accelerated my time to being more successful rather than trying to figure it all out on my own. And I think asking for support, finding mentors, hiring a coach, getting a therapist is not weakness, it's wise. It accelerates time. You learn something that you might have a blind spot with that could really save you a lot of energy and pain. You can make money faster, in my mind, if you find the right coaching and support. So for me, I'm all about it. And I'm always looking for ways to improve by finding great coaches.
So, and that was just through, you didn't have anyone say to you, you need to go get mentors. It literally was just well done, man. That's amazing. I think
because I also just felt like I don't have any skills. Like, how am I going to make any money? Again, the economy was crashing. I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to do with my life. And my father went through a pretty traumatic car accident right around that same time, so I didn't have my dad to lean on. And he was in a coma for 3 months and then spent 17 years with a brain injury. So it was like devastating. So I didn't have this father figure that I could ask questions to. So I needed to find coaches, mentors in other places.
It's interesting you say that. We grew up single mom. My mom raised 7 kids. She's an unbelievable mom.
Wow, 7 of you.
Yeah, there's 7 of us.
Are you the oldest?
I'm the second eldest. Wow. Yeah. So, there's a big family, and my mom did, unbelievable job. Sure. She's the hardest worker I know.
7 kids. Wow.
7 kids.
How many boys?
5 boys, 2 girls.
Oh man.
Yeah. Niamh's the youngest. So,
wow.
Yeah. But I didn't grow up with a father, and because of that, I had one basketball coach who, I was so attached to every word he said. I'd listen to everything, and if he went to me, if he says blew his whistle, I'm on the line first. I'm ready. I'm listening, and there was not a need, but I mean maybe there was a need, a gap for a male role model for me, somebody there for me to give me guidance, and it served me so well, and I think there's many young men who don't have that guidance, and I'm glad that there's content that's getting put out there for those kind of guys, but how would they reach? This is always the thing I reach in these conversations, is how do you reach awareness? Does it have to hit rock bottom? Does something bad have to happen? Do you have to want to improve your life and better yourself? But it almost upsets me that there's people out there who might not find this awareness. They might not be able to reach this point where they go, I need to find a male role model. I need to reach guidance.
Man, unfortunately, I feel like most people need some type of rock bottom experience for them to say, okay, I need support. Because I think we try to do it on our own for so long. And then when we're at the bottom, we still don't ask for support until we're just like, all right, I don't know what to do. I'm just stuck in my room all day. And unfortunately, that is a lot of the culture. But I try to just talk about, I try to put myself out there and say, here's what I'm doing, guys. I'm investing in coaches, and things are going well for me. I'm not in a rock bottom situation. Things are well, and I want to improve. I try to give examples of Kobe, LeBron. When they won the first championship, they didn't say, you know what? I think I got this basketball thing figured out. I don't need a coach anymore. I'm going to do it on my own. No, they hired more coaches and specialists. I hung out with Novak Djokovic. I had him on the show a couple times, and I hung out with him after a tennis tournament here in California. And he had a team of coaches with him. He had a whole recovery system, like a caravan with ice tub and sauna that he traveled with him to help him recover. He had a mindset coach, a specialist coach, a training partner, all these people there to support him. He was #1 in the world, and he didn't say, you know what, I'm the best in the world. I don't need anyone. He said, I know why I got here. Yes, I worked extremely hard, and I had support. And I think if people can see those examples, they don't have to hit rock bottom. They can just start investing in mentorship now.
Just whilst we're on the theme of young men, but men in general as well, I think you've spoken about this on the Jay Shetty podcast, and you spoke about men not being able to open up to each other, not being able to share their emotions, and it's something I wanted to share recently, actually. My best friend, when I'm on the phone with him, when I finish the phone call, I always say, love you, bye. That's what I say. I tell him, love you, bye. And it started as a little bit, I say it to my brothers as well, but love you, bye. And the first time I ever said it to him, he texted me and he was like, love you too, mate, or something like that. And a little laughy face, but love you too. And that now we have that interaction where we say that to each other. And for me, it was all about, I don't want to, if I passed away, I don't want my friends to not know that I didn't love them. Of course I love them, but there's this stigma, and you said it earlier, that is it the same in the UK? It is the same in the UK. Men can't open up to say, I love you to their friends, which is so strange. It is,
It's an uncomfortable feeling to say those things when you're not conditioned.
When you're not, exactly. But once you've done it that one time,
it might take a while.
It takes a while, but...
And it's also, you want to make sure you're doing it in an authentic way and doing it with the people that you truly feel that too. Yeah, it's like...
I mean, what's your thoughts on sort of being able to share those kind of emotions as men to other men?
Yeah, I think it's challenging sometimes. I still struggle with it, but I feel like as long as you're able, I don't think people need to say certain words because they feel like they're supposed to, unless you really feel like, I want to and I don't want to regret this. Great. But I feel like it's more the energy and the intention with the conversations when you have with other men. And are you able to look them in the eyes like we're doing now and connect with each other? Are you able to open up and express vulnerable things if you feel it's a safe environment to do so? Are you able to truly say what's on your heart, or are you hiding something because you're afraid of what they're gonna think? That's what I think we should be thinking about. Can you have these conversations? If you can say, I love you, great. But if not, and you're able to have these conversations and open up and feel connected and feel vulnerable, I think that's where the magic comes in deepening relationships and creating better connection, better trust and respect with one another. So I think that's where the work really is learning how to feel safe communicating and expressing yourself with other men, where most guys aren't able to do that. We just haven't been trained how to do that. So it's unlearning and decades of experience and conditioning and starting to feel comfortable. It's challenging to do, but it's very worth it.
Yeah, definitely. I think the relationship I have with my friends is that for him personally, he'd helped me through a very difficult situation. So I had to open up to him, you know. It put me in a situation where I could tell him that I appreciate what you've done for me and I love you for that. Like, I could say it authentically without that little, that feeling of same with the sharing in general. I think so many people, like you say, just struggle to be able to, I don't know, it's trusting somebody else with something very, sensitive and...
Absolutely, man, it's not easy.
You don't want it thrown back in your face.
No,
the last thing you want, yeah.
It's not easy, man.
I think something you've spoken about recently, and congratulations on the engagement.
Thanks, brother.
Amazing
Thanks,
to do that at the event. I mean, that must have been nerve-wracking. Was that nerve-wracking?
Nervous, man, because the whole, I interviewed her on stage, and for like 40 minutes, I'm like, all right, this is about to happen. So I'm trying to be present with her, but I'm also like planning and visualizing. It was crazy.
So looking over, in terms of the healthiness of your relationship, you've spoken about how it is different. What are the key differences with your relationship currently?
Two of us being on a healing journey, individually and separate from each other before we met. I was really wanting to heal whatever traumas I kept recreating in past relationships before entering a new relationship. And my vision was to meet someone who was also in a healing journey and taking full responsibility for their life, their actions, and their emotions. Because for whatever reason, I'd chosen certain people in the past who weren't willing to do all that work. And it doesn't make them wrong or bad, it's just I chose based out of a wound, not based out of a vision. And so when you choose based out of a wound, or you choose for that's not based out of a vision, it doesn't always work the way you want. And so this was about creating an intentional vision of a relationship that I wanted to create. And I knew I wanted the relationship to have three key things where we shared values, shared vision, and shared a lifestyle that was in alignment for both of us. Because I think if those three things are off, it's just gonna make it more challenging. It doesn't mean it can't work. I'm just trying to eliminate as much friction in my life and have more peace and harmony. So I knew that those three things needed to be key: aligned values, aligned vision, and aligned lifestyle. With that, when I entered the relationship with Martha, I made a request. I said, listen, I've always wanted to enter a relationship in therapy together when everything's great, but no one's been willing to do that. Are you willing to do that? And she was like, 100%, let's do it. She'd never done that either. So after the dating process of many months and we got it committed, we started therapy. And it has been the best thing that I've ever done for my life, because there probably wouldn't have been too many challenges in the honeymoon phase of any relationship. Everything is perfect, usually, right? In the first 6 months, you're just having fun. There's chemicals, there's chemistry, all this stuff feels good. But for whatever reason in my past, things always got worse around a year or 2 years, right? And because we never really addressed the things that we needed to address. And so we got into it early, and it allowed us both to create agreements, to learn each other's communication style, and to diffuse anything that could have been bigger, pretty quickly. Any little frustrations, we were able to communicate about it, create agreements on alignment around it. and have harmony. So it's been this beautiful, peaceful experience. And again, no relationship is perfect or whatever, but I've never had this much peace in a relationship. And so going into it with a vision of what I want my relationship to look like, creating, finding a partner who has those three things in alignment, values, vision, and lifestyle, and then agreeing to start in therapy. It may seem like a lot for people to be like, man, that's a lot of work, or starting in therapy, why would you do that if something's not wrong? Again, I'm doing it because I don't want things to get wrong. I'm doing it to make sure, are we in the right place? Should we continue, or should we exit early in this relationship before going 2 to 3 years? Maybe we're not in alignment, so let's figure it out sooner than later and either move forward or move on. And so that has created a great harmony in the relationship. And I want to keep doing therapy because it continues to work. So I don't want to stop. I don't want to wait till something gets bad. It's like, why play a sport and not have a coach? Why get into a relationship and think you can win on your own? I don't know.
No, I love it. I love it. I think the practicality of that would scare people. Like it would scare people. I think
I never would have thought about doing that in my 20s or early 30s. I'd be like, no, I don't need that. What's wrong with you?
It's funny. My girlfriend said to me at the start of our relationship, she said, love is not enough.
It isn't.
And I remember it hurt me. I was like, of course love is enough. Like, of course love fixes everything. It'd be fine. But then we started to talk more about the practicalities of it. Yeah. And I think people do forget about the practicalities of it. They forget where people align. And you can have, like you say, those 6 months to a year, like you've got those feelings of love. They come up, of course you're going to love each other and you do anything for each other. But when it doesn't align and it, 2 or 3 years down the line, could be huge issues.
Yeah, and if you have different values, and I was talking to someone recently who's in a relationship with someone for 2 years, and I go, you think you get married in the future? And she was like, well, he needs to convert religions because I'm not going to marry him unless he changes religion. Well, I go, well, then your values are off. And so you're with someone wanting their values to change, they're not changing, so why are you together? Either you got to accept the values that this person has and be okay with it, or move on. You've got to or stress and struggle. That's fine if that's what you want, but it's not creating harmony and peace. You're creating disconnection, dis-ease rather than ease. And I'm not trying to struggle in my relationship. We have big missions in the world. There's already going to be challenges in the world to face. I don't want to come home and stress and struggle as well. So I'm just trying to create as much harmony as possible. I know there's going to be challenges that we're going to need to face in a relationship, but I don't want it to be more challenges than necessary by having out of alignment of values, vision, and lifestyle.
I think there was this quote that I wrote down that you'd said, I think it was in the Jay Shetty podcast, it was, you can't buy peace, you must be peace. I'd love to finish on that note because it really resonated with me at the time.
I think I learned this in the last 3 years when I was doing healing from a previous relationship. Because I said the first day I met with the therapist, she was like, what do you want? And I said, I want peace, clarity, and freedom. And everything that I was doing in that previous relationship, and really my entire history of relationships, I would do things to buy peace. I would give up who I was to make someone else happy. I would not create a boundary in order for someone to feel better. I would people please. I would do things to buy peace for a short period of time. And my therapist was like, you can't buy peace. Like, it's momentarily, but you're going to resent yourself, you're going to resent the relationship. You have to be peace. You have to be harmony and peace within you when there's chaos around you. And you got to be willing to create boundaries, and not your relationship or other people in life aren't always going to like the boundaries you create. I had partners that would kind of kick and scream and, yell and give the silent treatment if I didn't do what they wanted me to do. And so I would change who I was over and over again to make them happy. I would try to buy peace. And it never worked because they were never happy. So I'd keep changing more and more of my personality, more and more of my things in life to make them feel better and better. But they were never better. And then I felt drained and exhausted. So I tried to buy peace and I lost. and I was bankrupt. I had no peace. So instead I had to rebuild it, and I had to become peace. I had to set clear vision for the relationship. I had to say, here are my values, here's my lifestyle, here's the relationship I want to build together with you. Are you in alignment? And if they weren't in alignment, then I need to say, well, it's unfortunate because love is not enough. And it's not gonna work out for us. You're gonna be unhappy and I'm gonna be happy. Love is not enough. We need to have these other things. I want you to love the relationship. That means you've got to accept me and I've got to accept you. But if you can't accept me constantly for the things that I do or the things that I am, and I need to change to make you happy, that's not love. That's not peaceful. That's me needing to please you all the time. And it doesn't work for me and it doesn't work for you. So when I learned that and I created harmony within me, and you really learn being peace through healing. Because as a recovering people pleaser, I would do it out of a wound. I would try to please everyone out of a wound to be liked, because I never felt like anyone liked me. So I had to learn how to like the child within me, the 5, 8, 12-year-old within me who didn't have friends. I had to recreate a relationship with the inner younger me, which sounds weird. But just like you said, you've got to connect the dots to the past and create harmony from the past. And if we can go into the future and create harmony from the future to the now, we can create an incredible life. But we cannot buy peace. We must be peace.
I love that. Thank you so much. I need to review this. I'll write this down. I've got to go to school on myself. Where would you send people right now, like to get resources? Like, where would you say the best place to go?
I mean, they can check out the book, The Greatness Mindset, or the School of Greatness podcast.
Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for inviting me.
My man. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you to Lewis for doing this. I'm going to link his book and social media pages down below. Lewis is one of those incredible guys who is just open and honest and shares a lot of his teachings with the world. These moments and processes that he's been through, and his honesty is what is helping heal other people. And I love people who are willing to do that. Lewis is an incredible guy. Thank you for all your time. Hopefully we get to meet up in the future and do another episode. And if you enjoyed it, please make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. It's all linked down below. We're trying to get it to 15% of you guys subscribed and notified. And as always, all of this was made possible at Mulliganbrothers.com, from the Not a Journal success journals that actually lead to success, and the Momentum Mori posters. This is my poster right here. That's my life plotted out with my life represented in black squares. And that's an empty poster. And these posters and the frames and everything, when you receive them and you go through the process of filling them in, it really is a impactful time. It's something that I think gets you prepared for 2024, for the new year, to see that life is so precious. And there's a square on there, it could be down here, it could be up there, that I won't fill in. And that's a very humbling experience, and that's why I live with passion and purpose every single day. So thank you to everyone who supported us. It's linked down below. Get ready for 2024 with the posters and the journals, now discounted online. Thank you for watching, guys. We have a ton more episodes coming for 2024. It's gonna be intense, I promise you that. We are working harder than ever. I'll see you in the next one. Stay watching. Inspire change. Peace.